Donald Trump stepped out of his black SUV, his security detail close behind. It had been a long day, and he wanted something simple, crispy fried chicken from KFC. As he walked inside, customers whispered and stole curious glances. He was used to it and barely noticed. While waiting for his order, his eyes drifted across the room and landed on an elderly woman sitting alone. Her silver hair peeked out from beneath a worn navy cap. She wore an old uniform jacket covered with faded patches. A cup of water sat in front of her, untouched. She wasn't eating, just staring quietly at the table. Something about her caught his attention. "May I sit with you?" Trump asked. The woman looked up. Her piercing blue eyes studied him carefully before she gave a small chuckle. "Well," she said, her voice steady but tired, "you're the president. I suppose I can make some room." Trump smiled and sat down across from her. The room grew quieter as people watched the unexpected conversation. "What's your name?" he asked. "Margaret," she replied. "Lieutenant Margaret Dawson, U.S. Navy, retired." She tapped one of the patches on her jacket. Trump nodded with respect. "Pleasure to meet you, Lieutenant. Are you waiting for someone?" Margaret hesitated. "No," she said softly. "Just thinking about old times." There was sadness in her voice. Trump noticed the thinness of her frame, the wrinkles on her hands, and the heaviness behind her eyes. "Are you hungry?" he asked. Margaret shifted uncomfortably. "I mostly come here for the warmth. The staff lets me sit for a while." Trump frowned. "That's not right." Before she could protest, he waved an employee and ordered a full meal for her. "Why are you here alone?" he asked gently. Margaret took a slow breath. "I had a family once. A son." Her fingers trembled slightly. "He was a Marine killed in action." Silence settled between them. Trump's expression softened. "I'm very sorry for your loss," he said sincerely. Margaret offered a weak smile. "It was years ago, but some wounds never heal." She stared at the table. "He was my only son. His name was Daniel. A good man. I was so proud of him." "He must have been a hero," Trump said. Margaret gave a sad chuckle. "He was, but war doesn't care about heroes." Her voice cracked. "After he died, everything fell apart. My husband, my home, grief does strange things to people." Trump listened quietly, feeling a heaviness he hadn't expected. The food arrived. Margaret hesitated before finally picking up a piece of chicken. "You didn't have to do this," she said. Trump shook his head. "Everyone deserves a good meal, especially someone who's given so much to this country." She nodded gratefully as she took a bite. "People don't see us anymore," she said after a moment. "Old veterans, we fade into the background." Trump leaned forward. "Not today." Margaret blinked, touched by his words. "Where are you staying?" he asked. She sighed. "Wherever I can. Shelters, mostly." A deep frown formed on Trump's face. "That's unacceptable." He leaned back, thinking carefully. "You serve your country, raise a hero, and now you have no home?" Margaret shrugged. "Life doesn't always go as planned." Trump glanced at his security team, then back at her. "What if I helped?" She looked confused. "Help how?" He smiled. "First, we get you a warm place to sleep tonight. Then we'll figure out something better." Margaret laughed softly. "I don't take handouts." "This isn't charity," Trump replied calmly. "It's respect." She studied his face, searching for insincerity. For the first time in years, she felt truly seen. After a moment, she nodded. "All right, but just for tonight." Within minutes, Trump's team arranged a hotel room nearby. As they drove, Margaret looked out the window in quiet amazement. "It's been a long time since I've ridden in a car this nice," she said. Trump chuckled. "Well, consider it a presidential upgrade." At the hotel, he personally made sure she was checked into a comfortable suite. "You'll be safe here," he told her. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. I don't know what to say." "Just rest," Trump replied. "We'll talk in the morning." That night, Margaret lay in the soft hotel bed staring at the ceiling, the warmth of the blankets, the quiet comfort of the room. It felt unreal. For years she had slept on benches, shelter cots, or cold sidewalks. Now she was in a peaceful room because of an unexpected encounter at KFC. She held the dog tags around her neck. "Daniel," she whispered, "I wish you were here to see this." For the first time in years, she felt safe. Across town, Trump sat by the window in his own suite, deep in thought. Margaret's story lingered in his mind. He knew he had to do more. The next morning, Margaret woke to the smell of fresh coffee. Room service had arrived, courtesy of Trump. She smiled to herself. This man really doesn't do anything halfway. A knock sounded at the door. When she opened it, Trump was standing there. "Good morning, Lieutenant," he said. "Hope you slept well." "Better than I have in years," she replied. He gestured toward the table. "Mind if I join you for breakfast?" Margaret laughed. "I suppose I can make some room." As they ate, Trump asked her a question. "What would you do if you had a second chance?" Margaret stared into her coffee. "A second chance? If you could start fresh," he said. "What would you do?" She thought for a moment. "I used to help young veterans adjust to civilian life. I'd teach them skills, help them find jobs. But after my son died, I lost myself." Trump leaned forward. "That's exactly what we need. People like you guiding the next generation." Margaret shook her head. "I'm just an old woman." Trump smiled. "You're a veteran. And veterans never stop serving." For the first time in years, hope stirred inside her. Trump made a phone call. Within an hour, a meeting had been arranged with Veterans Outreach Center. "I want you to meet some people," he told her. When they arrived, Margaret felt nervous. But as soon as she stepped inside, something shifted. The room was filled with young veterans, some struggling, some searching for direction. A young woman approached her. "Lieutenant Dawson?" she asked. Margaret blinked. "You know me?" The woman smiled. "Your story inspired me to join the Navy." Margaret felt her chest swell with emotion. Maybe she still had a purpose. Across the room, Trump watched as Margaret spoke with the young veterans. Her voice grew stronger, filled with wisdom and compassion. He realized something important. She wasn't just helping them. She was healing herself. Margaret wiped the corner of her eye and turned toward Trump. "I'd forgotten what it felt like to be needed," she admitted quietly. Trump smiled. "Then let's make this official." Within days, arrangements were made. Margaret was given a role at the Veterans Outreach Organization. They helped her secure housing and offered her a platform to continue doing what she once loved, helping fellow veterans rebuild their lives. Margaret looked at him, overwhelmed. "I don't know how to thank you." Trump shook his head. "Just keep doing what you do best, helping others." Weeks passed, and Margaret began to thrive in her new role. She mentored young veterans, helped them find jobs, and guided them through the difficult transition back into civilian life. One evening, sitting in her small but comfortable apartment, a world away from the cold streets she once knew, she picked up an old photograph of her son. Daniel stood proudly in his Marine uniform, smiling at the camera. Margaret traced the edge of the picture with her finger. "I think I finally understand, son," she whispered softly. "Service never ends." A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. When she opened it, Trump was standing there with a relaxed smile. "Just checking in," he said. Margaret laughed. "I think I'm doing all right, Mr. President." And for the first time in years, she truly believed it. As time passed, word of Margaret's story began to spread. Veterans, both young and old, reached out to her, inspired by her strength and resilience. One evening after a speech she gave at a veteran center, a young soldier approached her. "Lieutenant Dawson," he said nervously, "I was thinking about giving up, but your story changed my mind." Margaret felt her eyes fill with tears. "Then my mission isn't over yet," she said gently. From across the room, Trump watched with quiet pride. One simple meal at KFC had started something far bigger than either of them had expected. Sometimes change didn't come from grand gestures. Sometimes it started with something simple, seeing someone who felt invisible, listening to their story, and offering a hand when they needed it most. Through helping others, Margaret slowly rediscovered her own strength. Months later, she received a surprising invitation to the White House. Confused but curious, she arrived and was escorted into the Oval Office, where Trump greeted her warmly. "You've done incredible work," he told her, "and I think it's time the country recognizes that." Before she could respond, He handed her a small velvet box. Inside was the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Margaret gasped, her hands trembling. I don't deserve this. Trump smiled. Yes, you do. As he placed the medal around her neck, Margaret stood tall. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like a forgotten veteran. She felt like a hero again. During the ceremony, Margaret looked out at the crowd. Many of the veterans she had helped were there. Young soldiers she had mentored stood proudly among them. She had never imagined her life would take such a turn. After the applause faded, Trump leaned closer and said quietly, "You started this journey alone, but look around. You're not alone anymore." Margaret gripped the medal and nodded. "No, I'm not." For the first time in years, she felt truly at peace. Trump gave her a final nod. "This country owes you far more than a meal at KFC, Margaret," he said. "But I'm glad that's where we started." Margaret laughed. "Me too." News of her journey spread across the nation. Interview requests poured in, but Margaret accepted only one, where she stood beside Trump and shared her message. "This isn't just about me," she told the audience. "It's about every veteran who feels forgotten. We served our country. Now it's time our country serves us." Her words touched millions. Donations to veteran programs surged. Shelters expanded. Organizations gained support, and policies began to change. Margaret was no longer just surviving. She was leading a movement, and it had all begun with a simple question in a KFC restaurant. "May I sit with you?" One evening, Margaret returned to the same KFC where everything had started. Inside, she noticed a young homeless veteran sitting alone at a table. She smiled and walked over. "May I sit with you?" she asked. The young man looked up in surprise, then nodded slowly. As she sat down, Margaret realized something important. This was her purpose now. Just as someone had once helped her, she would now help others. The cycle of kindness would continue. Later that night, back in her apartment, Margaret flipped through an old scrapbook. She paused a photograph of Daniel in his Marine uniform. "You'd be proud, wouldn't you?" she whispered. "I finally found my way again." A knock at the door interrupted her. When she opened it, Trump stood there holding a familiar red and white box. "KFC," he said with a grin. "I figured we should celebrate where it all started." Margaret laughed. "You never change, you?" Trump shrugged. "Not when it comes to fried chicken." As they shared the meal together, Margaret realized something. Life had come full circle. Years later, her story continued to inspire countless people. A foundation was created in her honor, helping homeless veterans find shelter, guidance, and purpose. At her retirement ceremony, Trump once again stood beside her. "You changed more lives than you'll ever know," he told her. Margaret smiled. "So did you." Looking out at the crowd of veterans whose lives she had touched, she finally understood something. She had never truly been lost. She had only been waiting to be found. And sometimes all it takes to change a life is one conversation, one act of kindness, and one shared meal. The unexpected encounter at KFC had become something of a legend.